Hi guys, it's me Mitch and welcome back to another video of mine. I know it's been a minute. I think I've just made peace with the fact that I will be on here more sporadically. It just feels more natural to just my lifestyle generally, and yeah. Thank you for being here anyway. My birthday's coming up on Saturday and I've been taking the time to kind of just reflect on everything that's been going on generally in my life right now, but also just kind of celebrating how far I've come. And the things I want to share with you guys, as this video title shows, is 27 things I wish I knew or did before turning 27. Got some stuff written down here, so I'm just gonna start with the first one. So the first thing on this list is the most obvious one, because I mean my channel has been mostly dedicated to this, but it's obviously working on my self-love much sooner. I feel like reflecting on how I feel about myself and just generally the whole aspect of self-love, I feel that I've gotten so far with it, and it definitely would have been so much more helpful to my younger self, especially when it came to body dysmorphia and just how I view myself. I would have definitely helped if I would have worked on that much sooner. The second point on here is being gentle with myself, and this has really proven to help me so much, especially in times where I already feel like complete crap. And in the past, I would definitely be someone that would beat myself up even more for feeling like crap, or usually when I feel like crap, it's because I feel like I've embarrassed myself, or I messed up, or I hurt somebody. And nowadays, when I feel like I messed up, I just try to be kind to myself, because at the end of the day, as much as your environment might be able to help you and tell you that you're fine and that things are okay, it starts with yourself. So I really try to make sure that my thoughts are kind and gentle, so I don't make myself feel even worse than I already do. So the third point on this list is that my past mistakes don't define me. And of course, for me personally, it's important to learn and to grow from my mistakes. So in the past, I used to make myself feel so small for messing up, and I felt like I didn't deserve to be on this earth just because I messed up. I feel like nowadays this doesn't really come up anymore. I now know how to kind of rationalize it and just remind myself that what matters now is what I do with those mistakes. Do I learn from it? Do I grow? Do I, hold a grudge? I'm just so much more than my mistakes, is basically what I'm trying to say. The fourth thing here is choosing my friends wisely. I wish I would have done that in the past, and of course I have had really amazing friends in the past, and to this day they're still one of my best friends, but I would definitely choose situations or people where I feel like I wouldn't completely resonate with them, and I would force myself into kind of like this little box that I just did not fit into. Don't get me wrong, I feel like it is important to meet people that you don't fully resonate with. It's just healthy to learn from others that you have nothing in common with, and vice versa. At the end of the day, there's always something to learn from other people. At the same time, I felt like I would just do things with other people even though I didn't really want to do that. Nowadays, I'm really picky with the people that I hang out with. I feel that obviously your environment and friends, not only do they kind of reflect the person that you are, but I also feel like it's very helpful to have a nourishing environment, because otherwise, you don't really want to have friends that will drag you down. Or I personally feel like I want to come home from a hangout with friends and feel energetic and happy and peaceful, and not like my energy has been drained. So I really pay attention to what people make me feel and how the dynamic is generally before I, continue with this friendship. I think something that's also been helpful is that in the past, I couldn't really identify people that were competitive in a friendship, and I know what that felt like, and I feel like I've grown from that quite fast actually. And nowadays when I meet people that are competitive with you, especially if it's women, I'm just like, why? I understand where they're coming from, but at the same time, it's not the type of energy that I want to be around with, because it gets exhausting. I think another tip that has been quite helpful for me nowadays, I guess, is that sometimes you'll just end up meeting people that are committed to misunderstanding you, and I guess that I have finally learned how to see when people are committed to misunderstanding you. And a lot of the times they don't even mean it, and a lot of the times they don't even realize it at all. So I guess in the past it would have been really helpful for me to just know all of this. With the fourth point being said, I just wish that I would have paid more attention to what people give by just existing and being who they are. And I think I already mentioned it briefly on my fourth point, and I stand by my fourth point when I say that it's important to have friends that you resonate with and that support you. But I also think that you can learn from anybody and anyone. And nowadays I feel like even though I don't really fully resonate with somebody and I feel like we have completely different lifestyles, I still feel like I learn a thing or two about them and I learn a thing or two about myself. And I just think it's a good experience anyway to just meet a bunch of humans and, respect and know them for who they are and leave it at that. The sixth thing I wish I would have known was that a lot of times people just tend to act from their hurt inner children, and just me learning or being compassionate towards that. And this would have really helped me back then to, first of all, not take everything so personally, which I definitely did. And this point generally is a very hard thing to implement in my life anyway, because it's always a tricky thing to navigate a relationship with anybody or, just getting to know people generally. And nowadays I just tell myself that, people are going through a lot of things every single day, and we don't really know what a person is going through generally, and people are just trying to navigate through this world with the best tools that they have and everything that they've just learned so far. And yeah, just being compassionate towards that helps me, and just not taking things too personally from people. Number 7, again, relates to number 6, and it deals with setting boundaries. Because yes, I do stick with number 6 where I feel like it's good to know and to be compassionate towards others. However, I still think that this mindset should go within reason and that setting boundaries is very important. And while I understand that others may be hurting and that hurt people, I don't have to be there and take that from somebody. I feel like setting boundaries for me, I've improved in. It's definitely nowhere near perfect, but this has definitely helped me in just keeping my mental health and mental peace all around. Also, at the end of the day, if it's a situation where you want to help a friend go through whatever they're going through, and if you disregard your own mental health by trying to help your friend, it's not very productive, and it can just end up making you spiral. So I think this has really helped me in understanding that I cannot help others if I cannot help myself, and set boundaries towards others too. So number 8 on here is trusting my gut, and this is still something I think I'm working on. I mean, I feel like all of these points are still something, that I'm working on, but I think trusting my gut was very hard for me in the past because I was filled with so much fear and anxiety that I just would dismiss my gut feelings. And at some point when I did start working on my gut feeling and started listening to her, I couldn't distinguish whether or not my gut was telling me something or if it was my anxiety. So that took another 1 or 2 years to figure out, okay, am I anxious, or is this really something my gut is telling me to stay away from? Number 9 and 10 go hand in hand for me because I wish I would have listened to my anger and to my jealousy way more back then. I used to be so angry with the world and people, and also just jealous of people and especially women. And rather than listening and trying to understand why I felt this way, I would just bury it. And I didn't want to deal with it, which of course just got worse and worse over the years. And now thinking back to it, it kind of scares me a little bit just because I had such tunnel vision every time I felt these emotions. When I think about it, it just feels a little bit scary that I was in that place a lot of the times. When it comes to jealousy, I know that jealousy for me tries to tell me that I feel like I'm lacking in something, or I feel like a certain need isn't getting met. This is something that I just wasn't aware of before because I also felt like jealousy had a lot of shame around it. I felt like back then jealousy was something that we shamed people for, which is just such a natural emotion, just like every other emotion. So when it comes to anger, the message behind there for me is usually that I feel injustice somewhere. And in the past, it's always been when it came to sexist jokes, which I feel like I don't need to get into, and also racist jokes, which another thing is something I don't think I need to get into, which is very self-explanatory. And, in the past, I think I've made myself feel small, so I just never stood up for myself. And nowadays, when this anger comes up, there's a reason why it comes up, and now I have a better way of understanding it and also just communicating it to other people that I felt injustice in that way. Number 11 on this little list of mine is I wish I would have stopped drinking alcohol and smoking sooner. So let's make one thing clear. I don't regret all the fun I had in the past of partying and drinking with my friends and going out clubbing. And I mean, of course, some of it was underage, but I don't regret any of it. I really don't. I had so much fun. But over time, I started noticing that some of my behavior just was not mindful. I, at some point, couldn't really distinguish whether or not I was going out with my friends and going partying to have fun, or I was burying something and I didn't want to deal with something. And eventually it just all got kind of lost and mixed up altogether. And I guess over time I started having anxiety that I just blocked out completely. But I started having anxiety right before leaving the house. So while I was getting ready to go out and on my way to the bar, which I never understood why I had that. And now that I finally went to therapy and analyzed all of it, I know why. And when it comes to smoking, it's smoking. I feel like, that's enough said. And I just was so focused on trying to be cool. I don't even think I really liked it that much because I wasn't someone that smoked on a regular basis. I was mostly someone that smoked when I went out clubbing and, went out drinking. So those two kind of went hand in hand for me. And at the same time, like in those moments where I felt like I wanted to smoke outside, like during uni breaks or something with friends, it just felt unnatural to me. Like I just felt I didn't enjoy it at all. I think it was just such a social thing. Number 12 is I wish that I would have stopped to listen to my fear-ridden self / my autopilot self. And this kind of ties in together with drinking as well. Because of the fact that I grew up more fear-based. I don't know if some of you have seen in my other videos, but I talk about it a little bit. But basically, I grew up leading my life with fear rather than with love. I was terrified of facing myself and facing what was going on and why I was feeling the way I was back then. I just went on autopilot for most of my life. I didn't really get in tune with myself. There was a lot of toxic positivity going on. I allowed also others to kind of dictate my life, and I would always have such role models in my life where I feel like what they did was the right thing or the way to go. And this went from family members to friends to really anybody. Yeah, I just felt like I didn't really have a sense of my own identity somehow. I don't know. This is also the reason why I eventually stopped drinking alcohol, because then I finally faced what was going on and I just didn't party my way out of it, kind of. Yeah. Number 13 on here is one of my favorite points, and it has to do with starting my sexual healing much earlier and, working on my feminine power much earlier. I love this because nowadays this is really the core of me and the base of me. Whenever I feel disconnected with myself, I come back to this and I do a lot of practices, mostly tantric practices, to try and get back to myself in this way. I feel like this path for me has been so empowering because I really feel in tune with myself. It really works on my self-love, mentally, spiritually, and sexually, which is just so beautiful, I find. And this also has helped me so much in appreciating other empowered women rather than being jealous of them. And I feel so nourished and whole when I see other women going down this path as well, and also just celebrating them for being amazing women. And I never really had that in the past. And I feel like growing up, I was taught, and I know that many women out there too have been taught, to just have this competition towards other women rather than celebrating them. And I freaking love this about myself now, that I can really tap into her and just, feel empowered through her. So yeah. Number 14 is that I wish I would have stopped seeking approval from other people. Whether it was my family members, friends, teachers, whatever, I wish I would have just stopped doing that. And I used to justify it by thinking that I wanted people's opinions, which there is, by the way, a huge difference in. But actually, it was me seeking approval and kind of seeing like a go-ahead for doing something or choosing a path in my life. Or it can even be the smallest thing, like, I don't know, buying a dress, or I don't know, and wanting to seek approval from somebody. Number 15 is that I wish I would have forgiven my parents for the way they raised me much sooner. I guess this kind of ties in with the point of, having compassion towards others and understanding that, others just tend to work from their hurt inner children. And this applies to my parents as well. You know, back then mental health wasn't really a thing, so I can only imagine everything that my parents went through growing up, and you know, probably the survival mode that they also had going on for themselves. I feel like at some point I was wondering why I was forgiving so many other people in my life and not my parents. But yeah, I've finally done that, and I've finally forgiven them for the way they raised me. And of course I still set boundaries, because obviously, you know, that's very much needed. That would have been helpful to also just understand that they were figuring it out, and they still probably are figuring out their stuff now. Number 16 is a really hard one for me, but it's healing my guilt and shame towards money. And this is something I think that's been going on for years, and still something that's so hard for me to kind of work on, or I don't really know what to do with it, I guess. Again, I think this has to do with the way that I was raised. Growing up, I was met with a lot of phrases that dealt with shame and guilt when it came to just me being born in a family that, you know, could live well off. I guess I always felt like I didn't deserve to be in this family, and I didn't deserve anything that I had in my life, because why? You know? Nowadays I'm still learning to understand and to see money as a tool rather than it defining who you are. That would have been really helpful for me back then, because a lot of the times, again, my fear about money and shame about money ended up also, you know, dictating the way my life went. And I would choose a lot of life paths that just, you know, constantly dealt with money and nothing else. And obviously that doesn't resonate with me, and didn't resonate with me. And nowadays I'm really working hard on that, because I still notice that sometimes when I purchase things, I tend to call up my brother and try to justify it to him for some reason, even though my brother actually has nothing to do with this. And every time I buy something, I get excited about it. I'm like, okay, well, this is an investment. This is something you've wanted for a while. You know, celebrate it, be happy about it. But then I can only celebrate it for like a couple of minutes, and then I feel bad and guilty about it again. So yeah, it's definitely something I'm still working on, still a hard, weird topic for me. Number 17 for me is healing my crippling anxiety towards studying. I used to think that I was really stupid, that I, you know, just was so incapable, and I wasn't cut out for school or uni or just books generally. Turns out I just had freaking anxiety around studying all the time. And I think it's because the way that studying was presented into our life, or into my life back then, was with a lot of aggression and, you know, fear. So that just, at some point I just couldn't really handle that anymore, and I just started rebelling, because it's just not a fun way to study at the end of the day. Nowadays I love reading books, and I only realized that I liked reading books when I turned 24 or 25 even, something like that. It's just such a contrast to how it used to be, because now these thoughts don't come up for me anymore. And the way I approach studying these days is with such curiosity and fun and love for what I'm studying, and just excitement, and that used to not be me. And it's just crazy how things have changed. But I'm grateful that it's like this now. But yeah, it would have saved me a lot of trouble in the past too. Number 18 is doing the things that I love much sooner, or just continuing them generally. Back then I used to care too much about being cool, and it took me a while to realize that being cool is just being who you are. So yeah. Number 19 is that famous phrase nowadays of, if they wanted to, they would. Now, don't get me wrong, I feel like this phrase does get blown out of proportion these days. But for me personally, I think that in any relationship, whether it's a relationship between family members or your partner or your friends, whatever relationship it is, if I'm not met with the bare minimum from this person, and if I don't want to give the bare minimum to the other person, then there's no point for me in that relationship, because then it's just a waste of time. For me, a need is bare minimum and then some, because in the past I know that I've begged for the bare minimum, for freaking crumbles of a relationship, and I am not going back there anymore, because that is just an awful place to be in. And yeah, it's horrible for my mental health and emotional well-being. So yeah, that's something that I definitely pay attention to way more nowadays. Number 20 is understanding my own patterns and my own toxic behaviors. I feel like nowadays we're so focused on other people's red flags and other people's toxic behaviors that I think that we tend to forget our own toxic behaviors. And this one is really, really bitter to face. And yeah, of course, it's so hard to just try and analyze this, but it's so necessary, because yeah, you just never know in what way and how your own patterns can be affecting others too. So that's just important to me nowadays. Number 21 is to do things that deal with play. I don't know why we think that growing up means that we need to leave behind everything that deals with play. You know, like I, for instance, love to play video games. Okay, let's be real, I like to play Fortnite. In my opinion, you can be an adult and do adulty things while also meeting the needs of your inner child and letting them play. I don't know why that's such a bad thing, or I don't know why sometimes there's like shame behind that. I mean, I guess I never understood it, but now since I started playing video games, which I also, by the way, only started with the age of 25, I think. Now I kind of understand it, and a lot of people tend to shame others for playing video games, which I think, like, why? Why do you feel the need to do that? But yeah, anyway, so yeah, deal things with play. Number 22 is allowing myself to slow down and just try to work on slowing down life a little bit. In the past, I would always allow the outside world and society to rush me, especially when you live in a big city. It's just so easy to get caught up with everyday life and all the busyness. It's always busy. Everyone's busy, 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 busy. Before I started studying again, I was doing an apprenticeship. I would work from 9 to 6, and I feel that the moment I started waking up a little bit earlier, okay, let's be real, back then I woke up at like 5 a.m. And I was consistent with it for a while, but then again, sometimes it felt forced. Generally, I felt really good about it because I felt like I did something for myself before work rushed me to do something. Nowadays, I don't do that anymore. I don't wake up at 5 a.m. because I don't think it's necessary. I just think that for me personally, it's necessary to, maybe wake up an hour earlier, or even just a half an hour earlier, and do something small that will make me feel good and make me feel happy in the way I start my day. And it can be anything from having my coffee peacefully outside somewhere, I don't know, on the balcony or whatever, or just journaling, or even just sitting on the couch existing and staring at the ceiling for a bit. Like whatever it is that makes me happy in the morning before just going out to do stuff, and get stuff done, I guess. Number 23 is mindfulness, and I think I've thrown this word around before, but for me, mindfulness is just something, I guess, that adds to helping the way I live my life. And it's so cliche, but I did start with a lot of breath work in the beginning. But nowadays, I think it helps me a lot in moments where I feel a lot of heavy emotions. I try to be mindful as to where it's affecting me. Am I getting a headache from that? Do I feel tension on my chest? I think mindfulness for me applies in that way nowadays, so then I can kind of, understand what emotions do to me and where they're showing up for me. Number 24 is not caring about perfection. The things that I would have started so much sooner if I just wouldn't have cared about being perfect. I would have started my YouTube channel sooner. I would have started pole dancing sooner. I would have started, anything really so much sooner, but I cared too much about it being perfect for some reason. I think it also just had to do with my relationship to ballet. I feel like I was kind of a natural talent in ballet, that I thought that the way that was in ballet would just, I could easily just put that into other places in my life, but that's just not the case. Either I would give up right away, or I would, think like, oh, well, I'm not going to be good in it anyway, so let's just not start it. Nowadays, obviously, I don't believe that anymore. There's no such thing as perfect, except for perfectly existing the way that you are. Number 25 is that I wish I would have traveled alone much sooner. I feel like, to be fair, in the past, I was definitely way too anxious to do that, but I've learned so much from it, even though I've only done it once now in the summer. I feel like I've learned so much about myself. It helped me a lot with trusting myself more, feeling confident, feeling like I can kind of conquer the world a little bit. And it's also really nice just meeting a bunch of people from different places, and especially if you end up staying at a hostel, I feel like we all tend to have this similar mindset in terms of, meeting people. And the nice thing about meeting people for such a short time and then, kind of going your own way afterwards is that they don't know anything about you, and there's no pressure to be this person that you think you are, and they just kind of accept you for you in that very moment. And they're like, oh, so this is who she is, and that's it. And it's great. It's a really freeing and liberating feeling to do that. So I recommend it. Number 26 for me is practicing gratitude. I feel that this has ripple effects in my life. Don't get me wrong, I don't recommend this when you're feeling down, and that is just not the space that you're in, because at the end of the day, I feel like that can also lead to toxic positivity, and that's just not helpful, at least not for me, because then I end up burying some of my shitty feelings. I feel like practicing gratitude for me helps in different areas of my life. One being the most obvious one, when, you know, something amazing happens, that I just sit with it for a moment and I really appreciate it and appreciate how far I've come in my life, where, you know, the fact that this is where it led to, and this amazing thing, whatever it is, it can be tiny. Just feel thankful for where I am now and where hopefully I'll keep going. And in other moments where I tend to implement this in my life is when I do feel sad and I'm in a horrible headspace, and when I finally have managed to gather my thoughts about it and journal about it and fully let it out, I try to journal or write down or think about the smallest, nicest thing that happened that day, just so it kind of lifts up the crappy emotion and situation in that moment. And if it doesn't work, I don't force it, because again, toxic positivity, no thank you. Finally, we have reached number 27 on this list, and I wanted to stop here and say thank you to anyone who has made it this far in the video. I really appreciate it, and if any of you guys are new here, please hit that subscribe button and like this video if you like it. Otherwise, thank you anyway for being here, and yeah, I hope to see you guys in the future. So, number 27 for me is that existing with your existence is more than okay. I know that I love to talk about growing and healing and all this self-development stuff, but a lot of the times it's also just okay to be human and to be here in the present moment. And I wish I would have known that sooner, because when I started this healing journey, I felt like I just constantly thought about healing and growing and getting better, which is important, but at the same time, it's also so human to just be human. I don't know if that made sense, but somehow that also made sense. But it is very human to just exist and to be in the moment, enjoy life for what it is, enjoy where you are too, and see how far you've come, and celebrate that, and I don't know, just love the hell out of yourself in that moment. A lot of the times I also like to remind myself that this is the youngest that I'll ever be. It's amazing that I'm here now, that I've gotten this far, as excited as I am for my future, which hopefully is gonna be amazing too. It's also just good to stop and look around once in a while. It's so cliche, I know. But you know, that's really, I feel like, where my life has come to now, and it's just making me so happy. So yeah, those were the 27 things I wish I would have known sooner or would have done sooner. And thank you guys for being here. I hope you guys have had an amazing week, an amazing month, an amazing life, and I hope to see you guys in the next one. Happy healing. Bye.